Okay, so in terms of adding a personal touch, like I know that that's especially too like if people are working with social media managers or you're working with a team that's not us, which is great. But we'll take you if you want to come. But how do you add that personal touch when you're doing some of these automated tools?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is I think we need to really spell out like that value that we were just kind of talking about for the person. Like I think when people like typically think of a pitch, they're like, "Oh, I'm Ben from the Social Snippet, and the Social Snippet has 80 clients, and we make this much money, and this is what our package costs, and this is what kind of things we can do for you. It's 3 times your impressions on LinkedIn or Instagram, and it's all about like very like us centered, like what can we do for you? But like they want to like it spelled out for them as like what like value, where do I fit into what you're pitching me?
Yeah.
What value is in it for me? So instead of being like, oh, this is the Social Snippet, and this is like a huge paragraph of what we do. It's like actually like, oh, like I see that this is your position at this company. Like we have this experience really creating value for businesses that we think are really similar to your business, and we believe that we have some value to offer you. So I think like that makes it just so warm when they're like, actually, oh, you see me, you see what I'm doing, and like you actually want to like come alongside me rather than like you're just looking for a sale. Like I think like it's always leading with like the value, and then afterwards we can talk about what it might cost us to do that. But it's like we're trying to lead with like, oh, here's actually how we can help you, and maybe there's a cost kind of thing, rather than being like, actually, before I even get on the phone with you, like you need to commit to giving me $3,000. Like that's just not, people aren't interested in that.
Yeah. I think where people make a lot of mistakes when it comes to social is, like this is across all platforms, but LinkedIn especially, is like you're not making the client the hero of the story. It's so you're making it really about you and like what you provide, and people actually buy transformation. They don't buy services.
Yeah.
So it's like when I talk about LinkedIn, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to give you a LinkedIn strategy day, or like, Ben's going to work on this campaign for you. I talk about like, hey, actually, this is going to increase your authority. It's going to increase your impact. You get in front of more people. Like that, you have to talk about like kind of the end in mind. People don't care about like they want the destination. They don't want the journey, right? You don't care whether you're flying Air Canada or WestJet. You care that you're in Mexico.
Yeah.
And so
do I get a drink when I'm on the flight?
Yeah, you get a drink when you're on the flight. Do you get a drink when you land, right? Those are the important questions.
Yeah.
So I think that's like really important. And one of my questions for you too is about like niching down. Like, so when people are like doing something like this, there's a bit of like a spray and pray, right? Where you can like hit a lot of people, or like, what if you're selling like more than one thing? How do you find like from your own experience working with our social snippet, you've done my stuff, now we're doing your stuff. How have you found it helpful to be able to niche, and what to do when people have multiple offers?
Yeah, it's hard because I think that like we're trying to create those whatever it is, 10, 15 touch points before someone is willing to buy from us. But like they can't buy from us if they don't know what we're selling. And like I think that it's been really challenging at times to balance like offering like just focusing on one offering at a time versus like kind of diversifying. And I think that what we've kind of come to is like that the consistency is kind of like is key, and like kind of keeping the messaging as consistent as possible. So even if it's like a different offering, like kind of pointing it back to like a similar like result, a similar transformation, kind of having like a tie-in point through all your messaging, I think is like really key. So then people know like what to go to you for. Like I think when people like see Christina on LinkedIn like all the time, like they're saying to you, like, oh, you're everywhere. It's like we don't want you to be like, oh, you're everywhere. We want people to be like, oh, you're everywhere and you're the social media girl. Like that you're the person who can really grow my sales online. Like we want people to like understand like not only like the who, but also like the what, and like how they can see transformation. So I think it's like you can be selling multiple things at the same time, but I think that they all have to feel like kind of aligned and like
Totally.
And like relevant to each other. Otherwise, it's just going to get confusing, and people are going to be like, I actually don't know what to trust you for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to tell this really fast story. I think I told you the story, but you have to laugh either way. So I was in an Uber in Dallas, and I love giving people unsolicited advice.
Yes.
Ben is the recipient. So I love giving people unsolicited advice. It's my favorite thing ever. And because I love unsolicited advice from other people, so I just assume it's a gift.
Yeah.
And so basically I'm in this Uber, and this man's talking to me about how he's like like I always ask people, I'm like, do you Uber full time? Because they rarely Uber full time. They're always doing something else.
Right.
So I'm always so curious. I'm like, what are you doing? And why is what you're doing not enough that you have to Uber? That is always kind of my mindset.
Right.
And if people choose to Uber, that is awesome. We need Uber drivers. Like, that's not a judgment.
Yeah.
But it's always like, it's very often these people are entrepreneurs and whatever they're doing is not like revenue generating enough that they have to have a side hustle.
Right.
No shame. Seriously, no shame, especially in this economy. But I always love to ask. So I'm like, what do you do like apart from Uber? He's like, oh yeah, Uber is so low on my list of things I like doing. I have some other ventures. I'm like, I would love to hear about these ventures. So he's like, venture one. I'm a financial planner. I'm like, oh, amazing. I'm like, so what are you doing for marketing? He's like, oh, I'd love to pick your brain. I do nothing. I'm like,
Excellent.
that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
It's only up from here.
Yeah.
So I was like, for that platform in particular, I would say LinkedIn would be awesome. Like, really just like, talk, right? Like, talk about, finances, talk about the economy, talk about wealth building. And then I would ask yourself where there are people who have money, and I would be there. That is where I would spend my time. So I was like, let's start there. He's like, great. He's like, well, I have this other venture. I'm like, give it to me. He's like, I'm a travel agent.
Okay.
I was like, okay. And he was like, so I would go on LinkedIn and I would post about wealth and then I'd post about travel. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, I would start an Instagram and I'd post about travel over there. And I would just highlight your clients, like highlight where people are going, highlight the best places they've been, highlight your own vacations, show people like what they're missing. Also talk about the value of a travel agent. Why should someone use a travel agent today?
Yeah.
Why is that more valuable than Expedia? How do you save them time? How do you save them money? People are and he was like, love that. I love that. Can I keep picking your brain? I'm like, of course. He's like, I'm also part of this like additional rideshare program that's not Uber. It's just getting started in Dallas, but I'm like an ambassador and I need to get other Uber drivers on. So, do you think I should just keep posting on Instagram? And I was like, okay, not the same Instagram as the travel Instagram for sure not. But I was like, okay, but where do Uber drivers hang out? And he's like, oh, we do these meetups or, I just know a lot of Uber drivers. And I was like, okay, what if you hosted an Uber driver meetup? What if you got that brand to actually sponsor a driver event?
Right.
He was like, oh, okay, great. And I was like, but do not post on that LinkedIn. And he was like, fair enough. And then as I'm getting out of the car, he has my bag and he goes, I also sell isogenics, which is like shakes, like weight loss supplement thing. And I was like, enough. One of those has to go. And we were like laughing about it. It was like jovial. He ended up following me on LinkedIn, like sent me a DM, all very funny. But what was so interesting about it was I was like, how is anyone going to buy any of these things from you? Because nobody knows actually what you sell or what you're known for. And you actually have no social proof that you can do any of these things well.
Yeah.
Other than drive this Uber, which was awesome. He was an amazing. He had a 5-star rating with like 1 million drives. So he was an excellent driver. If anything, he should have started a driving business. But I could not get involved in that. But like nobody knows who he is and what he's known for. And so I think with LinkedIn or with any social, like that's why that consistency is so important that's why I actually don't talk about social or podcasting that much. It's like I'm always talking about community because I actually think that there's so many tie-ins to social, podcasting, sales, how all of those things work together. So that's my story.
Yeah. Like build your digital community is just community. And why is because like just community alone is like the heart of like so much about like what you're doing and like it ties in all the ventures. I love that. I think that's why I was such a big advocate for this rebrand is because like I think that like Christina is the community girl and like that means like so much. That means that you're building business online. It means that you're building business in person and like you're the person who brings people together and like that is like at the core of what you do. And social media is like really just like the business that you want to be known for, which is great.
Yeah.
So,
love that.
yeah.
Okay, question for you. So let's talk about authority really quickly. So that's something that I think is very possible on LinkedIn in a different way than social, right? Like I feel like, especially than social, LinkedIn is social, but like Instagram, Facebook, I think LinkedIn has like an unprecedented opportunity for authority. And that was actually something we had to kind of do for me because I don't think I was pre-Ben, which is like a sad era, the pre-Ben at the social snippet. Actually, we had a good thing going, but now we have a great thing going. But pre-Ben, I wasn't doing much authority content. I was kind of posting. I actually thought I was doing really well on LinkedIn before Ben joined us. I just want to tell you. And then Ben really like ramped up what we were doing. But what did we shift and change to be able to build more authority for me?
Is this about Top Voice?
It can be about whatever. You can take this wherever you want.
Yeah, well, I think that it all works. It all points towards authority. I think it all points towards the social proof, right? You're thinking this Uber driver doesn't post and he doesn't talk about what he's doing, so therefore he has no authority. So I think like the first step if you're looking to build authority on your LinkedIn profile is to optimize it, probably, and that means like you have to add your experiences. Like, what are you doing? Like, what do you have a company website you can link? Like, can you have like a really captivating like hook? Like, oh, I help people do X, and here's my experience in my bio. Like tell us, like, why should we trust you? The second thing is you can start posting content that aligns with your mission and with the thing that you'd like to be known as an authority figure for. And on LinkedIn, there's so many options. There's like articles, which are kind of a cool long form way to kind of recycle. Maybe it's a podcast content. Maybe it's a video you made. Maybe it's just like a blog you made. You can recycle that into a LinkedIn article, which can build authority. You can just do posts. Video content's really popping off on LinkedIn right now. So you can do all sorts of content that aligns with what you have optimized your bio for. And then a third thing you can do, which is kind of cool, is like a top voice badge, which those go to like the top 5 contributors for like any topic. LinkedIn has like about 3,000 topics. So hopefully your niche is in there. I'm sure it is. Social media is in there. Christina's a top voice in that. I'm a top voice in podcasting.
I know that. And but okay, can we quickly talk about that for one quick sec? So Ben and I worked, Ben worked relentlessly to take my content and make it top voice for social media. Like this was like weeks and weeks and weeks. We celebrated when I became a top voice. Podcasting seems to be less saturated for amount of people who want to be a top voice in podcasting. And so one day, Ben out of nowhere, I'm like on LinkedIn and it pops up, Ben Burke, top voice in podcasting. I was like, oh, it felt like you worked on that a little less than my social media.
Yeah, I think that I would really like people to take away from this episode that you could be an established business owner like Christina and have success on LinkedIn, or you could be a 22-year-old recent graduate and also have success on LinkedIn. Really, truly, anybody can do this. But yes, it's true. There are some topics that are much more competitive than others because it's all based on the percentile, right? So if like a bajillion people are contributing to social media topics, you're going to have to work a lot harder to like get into the top 5% versus podcasting was much less competitive. So, which is why I went after that one.
I just needed to put you in your place.
Low-hanging fruit for me. I just wanted an easy win. That's all I was looking for. But you get into the top 5% by contributing to these articles. So yes, we were working pretty tirelessly contributing to these articles like kind of every day for Christina. But now you're really cemented in there. You're not in the top 5%. You're in the top 1% of social media. So
wow,
I think you might be a top voice for life. We'll see.
Yeah, we need to keep working at it though. I will never let that badge go. But we've actually worked on this with some of our clients too. Like, you know, one of our clients is a top voice in entrepreneurship. We had a small business top voice. Like lots of people, you know, and there's lots of ways that you can leverage that. This is like a bit off topic, but one of the things I thought was really interesting was that, so one of our clients who's a top voice in entrepreneurship, which we worked on with her, we actually use our our tool that does like the DMing and the connecting to grow her podcast. Like we're not actually even using it for sales. It's much more like sending out her podcast episodes to new people to listen. Yeah. And that's helped grow her podcast number. So there's so many different ways that she could use that authority that she's now built through being a top voice to be able to grow other areas of her business that aren't just sales. Yeah.
Totally. It's really like whatever you want to make it. Like I think as long as you're like kind of niching down your searches for people that are actually interested in that. So like, I mean, if we're looking for people like with Dior, like with our social media offering, it's like we're looking for interior designers, naturopaths, people who we think that can really benefit from our services, those small business owners. Versus like for that, it's like I'm not pitching an entrepreneurship podcast to somebody who works at like
Deloitte,
just like a bank, right? Like we're trying to get, ideally, it's not foolproof, but it's pretty good. We're trying to get a lot of female entrepreneurs because that's kind of like who this client like really speaks to, and that's people who are actually going to be like, oh, actually, thanks so much. Like that podcast actually really helped me, and now I'm gonna like follow you on LinkedIn and maybe even like see what other things you're doing in your business, kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, love that. Quick question for you: what you're like ready? Yeah. What should people post on LinkedIn?
People should post. I mean, I think that like there's a stigma being like you can't post anything on LinkedIn, which I'm not really convinced is true. I think that like you see like really casual content doing well on LinkedIn. You can also see pretty formal content doing well on LinkedIn. I just think that the content can be anything as long as it's like really consistent to like your business. It's not really like, oh, here's my cat. Like it's like here's it can be like if your business is like is you're an entrepreneur and you're fun and like that's what you sell. You sell good vibes. You sell like whatever it is. Like you can have casual content, but I think the content has to really like make sense for like what you're selling and like what your business is. Because like again, you want to build authority and not come off as the Uber driver who sells isogenics, travel, and like shakes and rideshare. Like you don't want to be that person. You don't want it to be confusing. So I think you can really post whatever you want as long as it aligns to your business. And a place that I would start is probably just with like really simple, like a LinkedIn post being like, hey, here's something that I'm taking away from my business this week. Like here's a lesson I learned. Maybe attach a cool photo from an event that you had or you know a trip that you went on and just be like, here's just like an update for my LinkedIn community. And I think that like it just allows people to be like, oh, this is what this person is doing, this is what this person is learning, and this is how I can benefit from them. So
yeah, I love that. A great place I think to start too is if you're posting on other content or other platforms, just cross-posting your content. Like if you like you can't like reinvent the wheel, if you're feeling like overwhelmed by it, just like take what you're posting on Instagram, post on LinkedIn, see what performs. And again, success leaves clues. So really looking at like, okay, this looks really good. You know, people are liking this on LinkedIn. I'll tell you from like my own experience, like the stuff that gets the most engagement is actually like we post a lot of educational content. Ben does that on my behalf, like a lot of like really like educational content that's based on our blogs and based on stuff that we're like talking about. But the stuff that actually I think does best, forgive me, Ben, is like the stuff that I typically post that's more like personal. Like when I'm like, hey, we were just at this event and it's a picture and I've tagged a whole bunch of people. If it's, hey, I just hit 10,000 podcast downloads. Like that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Like, because people like on all platforms want to be part of your journey.
Totally.
And so I think like even like if you're like, hey, I just want to start posting like, you know, like exciting stuff that's kind of like happening in my business, like we could even do a better job, I think, and maybe this is something for us to note is like client wins, like things that our clients are up to, like and even showcasing the work, building that knowledge of like, hey, this is how we work with clients, and it's great.
Yeah, it's so true.
Okay,
bring people along for the ride.
I love it. Okay, last question. I'm gonna ask you one last question. Is there anything else that you feel like we've missed?
Actually, just the one thing with that is that like Christina's content on LinkedIn, because like you might be thinking, oh, I can post a client win or I can post the event that I was at. That's easy. Like that's the only new content that you post on LinkedIn. Everything else is recycled. And I think that that's important for people to know is that like, yeah, like you're saying you can cross post, but again, like you can just like reformat things too. So like we have a blog and like that blog content like informs like your posts, your videos and your articles, right? And it seems like, oh my goodness, someone's spending hours putting together this content. It's like, actually no, because we already had the content. So
100%.
Look at your archives.
Yeah. Okay, also a quick note on that really quickly is like you also don't have to do everything. And I think that's something on LinkedIn and like in life, just everyone, but on LinkedIn especially, like I don't use all the LinkedIn features. We had an internal marketing meeting the other day, right? And we were talking about this where I was like, oh, like Ben, we have all these newsletter subscribers on LinkedIn, which is awesome. We used to send our weekly newsletter onto our LinkedIn newsletter too. And I was like, we need to do something about this. Like we need to like use this. And we're posting all these articles and we need to post the articles and we have a company page. Like, should we post it on the company page? Like we don't need to do all the things. And when we see that something works, we should just keep trying to like replicate that. And then when you've got the capacity or the team for more, then that's the time to kind of keep leveling up, which now we have the capacity and the team for. But before then, like I didn't have the capacity to like write a LinkedIn newsletter every week and then not like, you know, write an article of original work. Like now we're like, truthfully, we're retaking blogs and making those articles. And often we use AI to reformat some of our blogs into posts. Like, and, you know, we finesse them a little bit for our style. But like those are things that like I think, let's take some easy wins here, people.
Totally. And I think like even when you have the capacity, like it can be one thing at a time, because I think it's like best to set up a process and to like do it well rather than just start throwing things around with no strategy and no consistency. So I think, one win at a time and eventually you might end up with a really great LinkedIn strategy. So
love it. Okay, my last question for you is what is something that you wish everybody knew about LinkedIn?
it's just like that. It's just not like scary. Like I think that it's like people I think feel like they have to show up at like they're in their best and most professional self. And I think the reality is that like you don't actually have to be a CEO to have a LinkedIn profile. You don't have to be like the head salesperson at like a Fortune 500 company and make a sale on LinkedIn. I think that like people are on LinkedIn because they want to talk about their work. They want to better their careers and to like make things happen in their businesses. And if you're not on LinkedIn, then you're just kind of like saying you don't really want to be a part of that, which is like, that's okay. But like, I think that like there's a real opportunity for people who are listening to this who might be saying like, I want to sell B2B, or like I want to, and like then maybe you should be on LinkedIn because like that's probably where a lot of your ideal clients are. And like if you have value to provide, then I'm sure that people are going to be interested in that value. And if you don't have value to provide, then as Stacey Millard would say, you're not a business.
No one quotes Stacey Millard more than Ben. Okay, Ben, thank you so much for doing this. I know we were joking about doing this and it like turned into a real thing. And so, and then you came with all these notes. So I'm so excited. But Ben, I tell you this all the time. You've been such an amazing addition to the team and we love having you. And Ben is, other than my husband and another male editor, we have Shy, but Ben is like the only full-time. There's like, we have a core team and there's 4 of us and there's 3 women and then Ben, and sometimes we trap him in vehicles and make him listen to Taylor Swift, and it's the swag that came in had a pink line on it. Like we're really trying to change our ways here, but we love having you. You add so much value, and I was gonna ask like if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you? Ben does have a coffee Instagram that I will not link because he asked me not to, but where can people connect with you and ask questions?
I think people can connect with me on LinkedIn, Ben Burke, Burke, in case some people forget the E. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. And if you really want to know what coffee shops to go to anywhere in Canada, then you can send me a DM and ask for the link to that exclusively yourself. We'll save the greater audience from that.
I love it so much. Yeah, let Ben know what resonated. DM us on the social snippet, or DM me particularly as well. But what's working for you on LinkedIn? What you've liked? I know Ben's tried a whole bunch of stuff, but it's not everything. And so I know that you guys are probably doing stuff out there that we don't know about too. And any questions you have, I'll bring Ben back for round 2.
Yeah, next episode is gonna be at, I don't know, 60,000 LinkedIn followers or something, but we'll have to do it again. Yeah, totally.
60,000. The math on that is in many years.
Or the 360 spinner, I guess. Maybe whatever comes first.
But whatever comes first. Yeah. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening to Community with me, Christina Bartold, and I'm just so excited to continue the conversations. If you're looking to grow your community and learn more about social, join us at thesocialbusinessclub.ca and use the code podcast to get your first month for $1. Share this episode with your friends and on social, or leave a review. It means the world.